All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Auditor Heifel, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. First item on the agenda is to approve our agenda.
Second.
Motion by Weiss, second by Dennert. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. At this time, we'll open the meeting up for any public comment. Anybody wish to address the commission on any topic that isn't on the agenda? Online, on the phone, in the room? I don't see any, so we'll keep moving on. Resolution to establish application and administrative fees for future tax increment financing districts in Brown County. We've got draft resolution that we've put together. I'll read it very quickly. A resolution to establish application and administrative fees for future tax increment financing districts in Brown County. Whereas the Brown County Commission wishes to promote economic development and growth within the city, and whereas South Dakota Codified Law, Chapter 11 through 11-9 permits Brown County as a political subdivision to achieve the above objective through the creation, approval, and administration of TIF districts. Whereas Brown County incurs costs and expenses in the consideration of applications for the TIF, as well as administration of the districts created, and whereas SDCL 11-9-15, paragraph 5 permits administrative costs to be included in project costs. Now therefore be it resolved, applications for TIF shall henceforth be subject to a one-time application fee of $2,500. Be it further resolved, any developer seeking TIF shall henceforth include its project plan an administrative fee of $27,500 to be paid to Brown County. Dated this day in July. After the drafting of this, we've gotten some information from our Director of Equalization that an administrative fee and doing what we've got proposed here in this resolution would only apply to county TIFs. Is that correct, Gene? Based on what you've been told?
From what I understand, yes. Not 100% certain, but according to Wendy Summer, state property tax director, it sounds like the inference is that it would only include county TIFs and not TIFs that are controlled and created by the city. Mr. Wagner seems to agree with that.
Yep. Would you like me to speak to the commission?
Yeah, that would be good.
So I know that some of the developer or the representatives are here to speak on the actual resolution, and I want to just speak on the city's position on this resolution. What the county decides to set for its TIFs as far as administrative fees and application fees is certainly, you're right, and we're not going to interfere with that. But having looked at the new legislation was HB 1194, it was a clarification really, looking at emails that we've had earlier, well, late last week, I guess, before the holiday. There is no legal authority from the city's perspective for the county to apply its TIF administrative fees to city TIFs. And that's, I think we're all on the same position with that. I've visited with, or we've had some exchange. Ross Aldenthaler has gotten involved as well. From looking at the email that Wendy Semler had with Gene, I think we're all in agreement that administrative fee from the county cannot be applied to the TIF. And so that's what I want to make clear, that as long as we all understand that, what this commission decides to do with the resolution as drafted is perfectly within its purview. It's perfectly fine. I am authorized to come to the commission and say that the city understands that there are costs that there's time and expense incurred by the county in both the front end of this, as far as meeting with developers and working through increment projections, and then on the backside with the assessor's office working through the district assessments. And in that regard, then the city is ready, willing, and able to sit down with the county folks, at your request, of course, sit down with you folks, and come up with a way to share the administrative fees, recognizing this partnership that we all need to have when it comes to the TIF districts and the creation of these districts. I know that Gene has put in additional time, and then the follow-up on these do not stop when the city council approves a TIF. I stay involved. In fact, we've got a couple of our TIF developers that we're still working with. It's been several years, but we need to make sure that the public improvements portion of these TIFs are in fact public improvements, and if they're not, we need to start doing our compliance and our enforcement on that. So the administration doesn't stop. Likewise, with the county, the administration doesn't stop. And so we want to work with you folks. But we also want to make it clear that as long as this commission is willing to move forward and pass a resolution with that understanding that it does not apply to cities, then we don't have any opposition to it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wader. Ross, anything to add?
As far as the interpretation about the changes to the TIF statutes, I haven't had time to look at that. I tend to agree with Mr. Wager at this time. I think to clarify the resolution, if you just insert applications to the county for tax increment financing, and then any developer seeking tax increment financing from the county, I think that would clear this up, that it applies to the county only. The other question, I haven't had time to dive into it, but on its face, I think Mr. Wager's probably right.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak to the resolution? I think if we would make the changes that were just suggested as far as the verbiage, we could pass this resolution with the understanding that it wouldn't apply to any city TIFs, and that way, in the event that the county would ever be faced with another TIF, the only one we have currently is the beef plant, which will end 2027, I believe, or thereabouts.
2027 looks like the expiration on that. I don't seem to have anything that I'm hearing about in the county immigration-wise, but, you know, there are like 27 or 28 active TIFs in the city right now that do take a lot of time, and I think at some point the city and the county do need to get together and kind of account for some of the time the county puts in on it in the administration of the TIF.
Okay. And Mr. Wager, we appreciate the fact that the city is willing to sit down and see what type of agreement we can come to offset some of our costs, so we will be in touch on that. Go ahead.
One quick question, Dwayne. How was the $27,500 number arrived at for the fee?
We looked at what the city charges. I think they've got a fee of $15,000, if I remember right.
That's the maximum.
Total, right. And we looked at, we pulled the Director of Equalization's office, the Auditor's office, and the Treasurer's office, who all have a hand annually in doing the calculations as far as what's collected and so on. And so we looked at the man-hours that were expended and put that over the course of 20 years and came up with what we felt was a reasonable number, which was double what the city does because of the involvement that the county has. And we put the $2,500 application fee, and then to make it even 30, came up with $27,500. So that was there was no magic put into it. We just came up with a round number.
Would the commission consider doing a sliding scale like the city has done? I mean, some TIFs can be very small, some can be very large. The $27,500 on large TIF is probably a cost that can be absorbed, but, you know, if it's a smaller TIF, that becomes a significant fee on top, so I'm just asking if the county may consider a sliding scale based upon the size of the actual tax dollars being sought.
I guess I, for one, would be interested in at least taking a look at that possibility. Jay?
I guess, you know, the only reason I'm here is I've done a number of TIFs, primarily with the city. I haven't done any county, and I'm just maybe here as a cautionary approach that I don't know if this is the right message you want to be sending. I mean, I think these TIFs are a wonderful vehicle, promote, you know, housing, particularly in Brown County, and when you look at a $30,000 fee up front, that's significant. And I agree that I think the county is looking at this and should impose some sort of administrative expense or fee like the city does, but just to come up with an arbitrary number that's double what the city just seems, I guess, inappropriate, and I don't know if it's sending the right message to developers. I mean, in looking at these and working with developers, you don't realize how razor thin some of these TIFs are for these developers. And a change in interest rates, change in the economy can have devastating effects. It can stifle development and TIF repayment and everything else. And so I think you really want to encourage more development. And I don't know if imposing a $30,000 upfront fee does that. I guess that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Any other comments? Go ahead.
I just kind of want to echo what Dave said. For those who don't know me, I'm Darren Beckwith, Homes Are Possible Executive Director, and I think the thing that stood out to me was similar along the lines of flat fee, and one of the unexpected duties that I've been involved with Happy over the last couple of years is going out to small communities and visiting with them about how can they start getting new housing in their towns. So think of a Frederick or a Columbia that they want to keep the school open, or they need to keep the gas station going, and they need some residents to keep those places open. And so we talk about housing, and mainly affordable housing. And when you run TIF numbers, it pays back really nice when you have $800,000 houses paying the TIF back, but you're trying to build a house for $250,000, and that increment is a third of a larger house. The repayment ability gets extremely tight. And so on top of that, when you're talking about a small town that maybe they only need one house a year, where it makes sense to maybe only put a block of infrastructure in and open up 6 lots. And so you might see a TIF of $250,000 or $300,000. And so you're looking at a 10% additional cost with this fee. So again, maybe looking at a percentage of the TIF, or based off the number of lots developed, or some sort of sliding measure, what might be a little bit more appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiss?
I appreciate everyone coming and responding to this being on the agenda and doing the background, because I think it's important to have this kind of conversation with this. The county's got a history, whether it's commercial or home development. It's something that the commission doesn't have to do, but we've been very much on the forefront when the discretionary formula was made available for development, both for commercial and others, allowing to have that, which defers property tax increases to try and encourage that. I don't think that we're intent on trying to stifle any of this development in any way, shape, or form. And I think your point's well taken, because when we had the discussions about how much time and energy goes into administering this TIF, that's exactly what we talked about, is that some TIFs take very little and others take quite a bit, and we're trying to find some middle ground. And so this is, an attempt to try and put that together
I think the sliding scale, it's a little more complicated, it's gonna take some more thought and consideration to do that, but I agree and I appreciate the input that that is probably a more appropriate way to go about that. And appreciate the city's willingness to have a conversation, because it does, some of these tips are complicated, take a long time, and especially Gene's office and the auditor's office doing that administration, you know, in addition to deferring any potential increase that the county would receive from those property taxes, which is, you know, a very significant part of what we try and utilize for our resources for all the different responsibilities that we have. It makes it a little difficult and sometimes a bit frustrating, so trying to find that balance. So I welcome and appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation about working together in the future going forward on that. They get complicated, and every time you think you know what you've got a template for, somebody throws another twist into it, but that's what keeps us going, getting up every morning. So I think I would favor deferring this for the time being, but continue the conversation. And I very much appreciate all of the interested parties taking time to appear this morning and have this conversation.
And I agree that, go ahead, Rod.
No, I was gonna say, I talked to Commissioner Gage, I said, I don't begrudge the county looking to have some kind of a fee. I understand that there's expenses involved. I spent a lot of time in the assessor's office working through the math problem to get the imprint created, so I understand all of that. So I appreciate the county's willingness to actually host this and consider maybe some alternative ideas or some modifications. But I want to play off of Jay's point too. You know, Aberdeen and Brown County is, you know, we're in the fight of our lives to try and get any economic development we can here. Sioux Falls, we know, has it easy. Hell, they add an Aberdeen every year. Rapid City has, you know, all the weather, and they have an Air Force base, and have all this economic development out there. My son just moved up there, you can't buy a house for a reasonable amount of money out there. So Aberdeen needs these tools, and I understand that it does impact the tax base in the beginning, but honestly, Jay will say the same thing. There's some of these developments that can't happen without a boost to try and get it off the ground. You know, we're doing the Westlake development on the west side of town. When that gets built out, that's gonna be between $50 and $100 million of tax base added when all 200 lots are full of houses and all the streets are built and everything else. And if you think about that, it's a 20-year investment, but if we can get those economic incentives up front, I think it really benefits Brown County in the end. But we really have to have the help up front. So I appreciate that the county will continue to review TIFs, and if this fee helps that process, then I think it's worth paying the fee and get it, you know, maybe a little more flexibility in how it is charged. So, thank you.
Thank you. And again, I agree with what Commissioner Weiss said. We should defer this, maybe pattern our resolution to reflect a little more closely maybe what the city has in place. So it is a sliding scale and wouldn't affect the smaller ones like with the bigger ones. And that way, if we're ever approached as a commission to approve a county TIF, they would know right up front that we do have a resolution in place, we do have an administrative fee and a set fee to cover the cost, so we could recoup something. So I would agree that we defer, do a little more research, and it's not as if we have to have something in place right away to take advantage of any new city TIFs, because obviously they don't apply. So time isn't of essence the way we were thinking it might be. Jay?
Yeah, Dwayne, and, you know, if there's any working sessions that you want any other input from, I'm sure Rod or I would be willing to, you know, come and visit with the county or the city or both in trying to come up with some sort of formula. I mean, I think between Rod's office and my office, we've probably done the majority of TIFs that are existing over the last, 15 years probably, and just working with those developers and knowing the problems that they encounter too. I mean, I think a resolution could be reached and maybe agreeable to everybody. So.
Sounds good, appreciate that. Any other comments?
Let me speak to
Okay,
the sliding scale a little bit. First off, if we look at small towns, things like that, we do have a developer's discretionary that's available in Brown County. If you or a developer, you've platted at least 8 lots for residential property, that land value is frozen for 5 years or until a property sells, and then that property goes on the assessment roll at full value. But as long as the developer owns that lot, for those first 5 years, that assessment won't move under a resolution we already have in place. So if you're looking at small town development of at least 10 lots, we can freeze that value for up to 5 years as it's being developed. That's one thing we can do for small towns. The other thing with the sliding scale, the big projects are easy, windmill plant, some of those things that happen, and the big decision's easy, nothing changes over a course of 20 years. It's the small ones that are hard to deal with. You start with a quarter of land, it's assessed as ag, you replat it 4 or 5 or 6 times through the life of the TIF. It changes classification from ag to non-ag, owner occupied. All those things you have to keep track of the base. I mean, those are the ones that are time consuming, and granted, they are the ones that, don't have any value or any big numbers up front, or you're talking about not big margin of error, but those are also the ones that take the most babysitting through the life of the TIF as you come through the assessment and taxation stage.
Any other comments, questions, or action by the commission?
Well, I think you need to make a motion to defer.
Okay, we have a motion by
Second.
Feldheim to defer, second by Dennert. Defer to time specific, or just defer to give us time to do further research, okay? Any further conversation? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We will defer that. I want to thank everybody for coming in and offering your words of wisdom this morning. We will follow up with Mr. Wager in the city, and if we need any help out of Mr. Galhouse and Rod, we'll get in touch with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Have a very good day. Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Next up, the big issue of the day, fireworks permit for Polino Fireworks, Brown County Speedway.
Move.
Motion by Weiss, second by Dennert. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Moving on to the consent calendar.
Approval of the general meeting minutes from July 2nd.
Move.
Motion by Weiss,
Second.
second by Feldheim. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Claims.
Move.
Motion by Weiss,
Second.
second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
HR report.
Move. Second.
Motion by Dennert, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Landfill tonnage report for June.
Move. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Claim assignment.
Move. Second.
Motion by Gage, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Travel request.
Move. Second.
Motion by Weiss, second by Dennert. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Any other business to come before the Brown County Commission this morning? We've had a request to go into executive session from HR, and I'm sure we've got a couple legal items to go over.
Move.
Motion by Weiss,
Second.
second by Feldheim. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are in exec. All right, the light is back on. We're back in session, out of exec. At this point, I would entertain a motion to retain Attorney Melanie Carpenter to assist with a personnel matter.
So move. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. Further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Is there anything else to come before the Brown County Commission this morning?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion by Dennert, second by Weiss to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.